let's do this influencer marketing. Obviously, kind of big deal, $700,000 US. So let's call it call it $50 million Canadian. Basically, it feels like, but no, around $1 million Canadian in new contracts. Do you want to kind of introduce first the kind of QYOU influencer kind of marketing platform for people that aren't familiar with it?
Yeah, sure. This is something which actually we've begun and gotten started and are starting to have some early success with in India, but the driver for it is here in the US. In what we do as a company, ultimately at the end of the day, is we work with YouTube stars, Instagram stars, TikTok stars, Twitter stars, people who are these so-called influencers. We've been doing that for a while now. Well, what's happened in that business is that as that's become mainstream, really, I mean, it's a mainstream activity around the world now, advertisers have increasingly used those influencers to market their products and services. Through a long story I really won't go into, but primarily based on our relationships with the movie studios here that we had on a personal basis, we got contacted now a number of years ago by one of the studios to say, hey, could we use our relationship with influencers to start to market a movie that they had coming out? It was actually Kung Fu Panda 3 from DreamWorks. And we sort of went, wow, you know what? This could be a really, really interesting business for us to get into. And so we began officially, this is now about 3 years ago, the business of doing influencer marketing. Well, what happened is those campaigns were so successful is that we started it just happened organically that we started to do another movie and another movie and another movie. And so we built up, it was really a solid business in doing influencer marketing. We also had a couple of other things around TV and retail, et cetera, but the absolute driver for the business was movies. As we entered into 2020, we were starting to really take off. We had a bunch of movie clients. Well, what was happening in the movie industry? People were shifting into more movies on Netflix being delivered, more movies on Disney Plus being delivered. It hadn't launched yet then, but things like that were starting to happen. So we were looking at that, but we hadn't really made a move there because our movie business was taking off. Well, we all know what happened at the end of February of 2020. COVID hit, and by mid-March, we had over 800,000 US, so we had over $1 million of Canadian business booked at the end of February for our fiscal Q4 for the April, May, June timeframe, and it went to zero. All the theaters called, all the studios called us in March, from like March 10th to March 20th. Sorry, guys, pulled the movie, no theaters to show it in. So we were, it was devastating, actually. We were like, holy shit, this is not good. And we began a process of working with the studios and pivoting with them because every studio in the world had to pivot in terms of what was happening. In January, February, we were looking at doing the previous year, we'd done about 2.2 million US, so call it 3 million Canadian influencer marketing business. We had a big Q1 and Q2, the quarter that we were in Q1 in February was looking really good. Q2 looked like we were going to break all records, and we were expecting to do 4 to 5 million Canadian in influencer marketing revenue this year in calendar 2020. And we were expanding into all these things, et cetera, and that just got chopped. It was just the rug got pulled out from underneath us at the end of February and early March. So what did we do over the ensuing months? We started building and going back to the studios and saying, look, you guys aren't going to stop delivering content. So what happened was we had to sort of, reinvent what we were doing in terms of our influencer business. Ultimately, we expect the movie business to come back and theaters to reopen. And we've even done some things that went in limited theatrical release. But what happened is we had to look at these new distribution areas, subscription video on demand, which most people would know as, what Amazon Prime is, what Netflix is, what Disney Plus is, et cetera. So we started to get some business in that area. Also, the movie studio started to release content in what's called PVOD, Premium Video on Demand. Premium video on demand is the business of when the one most people would be familiar with because they marketed it heavily is the Disney Plus or Disney movie Mulan. Mulan was put out where you could watch it for $29.95 or whatever at home. Well, that was originally supposed to be what in the studio business is called a tentpole release for movie studios. So Mulan was released as premium VOD. It was very successful for Disney. They're now releasing their big Christmas release, spacing on the name of the film right now, that would have gone and been their big Christmas movie in theaters from Pixar, is now being released on PVOD, premium VOD, because movie theaters aren't open at a large enough level to release what they call a tentpole movie. So we've moved aggressively into that area, and that $710,000 that we booked between September 1st and October 15th over a 6-week time period was all around PVOD releases, around SVOD releases, and around AVOD. What's AVOD? That's called advertiser supported video on demand, which is where it's free, where you don't pay a subscription. The big one that just released here was Peacock. I'll let you come to your own conclusions about whether that might be the company. And so because we can't announce who these partners are, but I can tell you that they're all AVOD, SVOD, and PVOD business. What's the overarching sort of news that's great about this? The truth is it took, 3 or 4 months of the tap being dry because theaters shut down. Everybody was figuring out what the hell are we going to do here? And so we finally in August started to see that move, and all of a sudden it's just gone boom. Our pipeline is as full as it was going back into February of new business. We've got a bunch of stuff that we're in the middle of discussing right now that's active. We expect calendar Q4, our fiscal Q2 to be a really, really solid quarter for us in influencer marketing. And now we're really expecting a lot of movement into 2021 because when theaters do reopen, now we've established new customers in PVOD, SVOD, and AVOD. So we're really excited about what's happening with the influencer business right now. The other piece of this, from an investor, I'll make the argument that our influencer business is back on a path where it was 6 months ago, to where our market cap of our company should be worth just what it is from the influencer marketing business, which is a highly profitable business. It's a 50% or greater margin business. So if we're doing $5 million, we're throwing $2.5, $3 million to the bottom line towards operating costs. And we're able to continue to grow and start to scale that business. Also, the influencer marketing business in general, the latest statistics, depending on who you want to listen to, it was an $8 billion industry in 2019. It's projected to be 15 billion in 2022. This is a business that's moving really fast right now. There's a lot of Canadian companies and people in Canada that are interested in the esports business. Go look at the numbers of the esports business and companies you might be thinking about investing in or investing in esports, and then look at the growth of the influencer marketing business. It's 10 or 20 times the size of what the esports business is in terms of revenue. So we think we're in a really good position with that. And the final thing, Jason, is that the team here is super, super good at this. And they're the team that's training our India team right now. And influencer marketing is also growing rapidly in India. So you're going to see a lot of stuff happen in 2021 around our influencer marketing growth in India that's going to sort of pick up and grow off of what we're doing here. So really excited about all of this.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you don't have to look too far to see influencers popping up and growing like crazy. I mean, all the Kardashians, that's influencer marketing. You look at, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. Whether it's working with a YouTuber, like you said, a TikToker, Instagram model, who knows? All these people are finding ways to kind of leverage their following and be an influencer and work with brands or movies or whatever it might be, and go from there. So I think it's awesome.
The media space is only one space. I mean, we're now exploring the game space. Obviously, video games, not esports, but video games specifically are a huge business. And and do a lot of marketing to the target that influencers speak to. Fashion and retail. Obviously, we've already done a little bit of retail. When retail starts to come back, there's a lot that's going to be happening there. And then that comes in addition to what we've already got in the media space. So we think we're in a really good position to start to scale and grow that business. We're being conservative and cautious right now. We're executing on what we've got. We're building in that expanded space of media across PVOD, SVOD, AVOD. But in 2021, I think, we're really looking at even expanding that further into other arenas, because influencer marketing is here to stay. I mean, anybody who's listening to this who has kids knows that their kids are walking around, staring at their phone 24 hours a day, watching TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, et cetera. Those are influencer driven platforms.
Yeah. No, awesome. Well, hey, I think this was a great video on influencer marketing. Unless there's anything you want to add on, I'm sure we'll have future videos talking about what's going on, but anything you wanted to mention before we close that up?
No, I think, our business, as we've refocused everything here, is really driven into two specific areas: Q India and the massive potential that we see for growth in what we're doing there as a business, and influencer marketing here in North America. And we think both of those are both complementary in terms of the skill set that we're developing. Again, the influencer ultimately feeding into what we're doing in India, and the growth of that business that we've got a customer base that we've already got on the influencer marketing side of blue chip, motion picture studios and brands that we're working with. So, we're as a result of what's happening for both of these businesses, that's where we get so excited about the market cap growth and the share price growth of what we see happening going forward for QYOU Media as a whole.